Hi guys, so we're talking about stable wording here for the synthesis FRQ. Stable means that it is going to be the same every time you get an FRQ in the synthesis assignment. If you look at the older essays that were released, a few years ago, they don't have this stable wording, but the stable wording is going to be stable from this point forward. So when you guys take your exam in a few months, you will see this wording. It's going to start with a subject introduction, and that's going to be specific to whichever prompt you get. That's going to change every time depending on what the prompt is about. But then the next section is going to be stable. Carefully read the following 6 sources, including the introductory information for each source. Write an essay that synthesizes material from at least 3 of the sources and develops your position on whatever it is you're talking about for that one. Okay. So a couple of things to note here. Carefully read the following 6 sources. Yes, we do want to read them carefully, but we also have to keep in mind that you only have 15 minutes. So we'll get to some strategies on how to get through those sources quickly a little bit later on in the week. Including the introductory information for each source. So at the top of each document, it'll give you some source information: who wrote it, where was it published, what year, etc., etc. They want you to pay attention to that. That's going to tell you a lot about bias and credibility. Then you're going to synthesize material. So you're going to have that material talk to each other. It's not about just using, one source for one part of your argument and another source for another part of your argument. It's really about the relationship between those different sources. And you got to use at least 3. Remember that if you don't use at least 3 sources in your essay, your best score that you're going to get on the evidence and commentary section is a 1 out of 4. That's not good. So then the next thing is that you're going to use those sources to develop your position on something. So as always, you're going to have to take a position, an arguable stance on this topic, whatever it is. There's also some more stable wording. If you look a little further down the prompt, it'll give you a list of what your response should do. So you should respond to the prompt with a thesis that presents a defensible position. A clear thesis. It doesn't have to be open or closed. There's no requirement for that. It can be multiple sentences if those sentences appear close together. It could appear anywhere in your essay, in the introduction, halfway through, in the conclusion. Of course, I'm always going to suggest to you that you should put your thesis at the beginning of your essay, right, in your introduction paragraph, because that's typically where students are most successful with that. The next thing is that you are going to select and use evidence from at least 3 of the provided sources to support your line of reasoning. You're going to indicate clearly the sources used through direct quotation, paraphrase, or summary. So even if you're not directly quoting a source, even if you're just paraphrasing it or summarizing what that source said, you still need to cite it. And then those sources can be cited in a couple of different ways. You can either say source A, source B, whatever, or you can use the information in the parentheses. So if I was going to use that first source in my essay, I could say either source A or I could say Morrison. It's typically the author's last name for that, or what kind of media it is, a photo, a chart, a graph, whatever. And I can say that in the sentence, right? I can say source A indicates that, blah, 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 blah. Or I could do the MLA style parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence. That works too. Next bullet point, I'm going to explain how the evidence supports my line of reasoning, right? That's your commentary, your warrant. It's not good enough to just drop in something from one of these sources. You have to actually explain what that piece of information from the source has to do with your defensible position, your thesis, your argument. And then, of course, we want to use appropriate grammar and punctuation as much as we can. Of course, everybody knows it is a test circumstance. You're doing this in 40 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? All right, so here is a sample prompt. Go ahead and pause the video for a second and read through this sample prompt. See if you can identify where the stable wording of this prompt is. All right, hopefully you paused and tried to look for that stable wording. And I hope you found this. We have the subject introduction here in the beginning, this first paragraph, all about what's happening with libraries as the internet has come in, and what some commentators are questioning and others say something else. But the stable wording here is the same in every single prompt you'll see from this point forward. And then you have your list down here. And then, of course, we have our source list down there. So you can see in here, in this one, I don't have a photo. Instead, it's going to be a chart here. And right here, I have a calendar. So you can kind of see how that works. So it's time to practice. You're going to find the link in that original slideshow that's right below this video that sends you to the locavore synthesis prompt. And while you're in there, you're going to make a copy of it. And as a group, I want you to find and highlight the stable wording. I don't care what color you use, but just highlight the stable wording in that prompt. All right, I'll see you later.